Welcome to The Ripple, where extraordinary women executives get real about their career journeys. This season, thanks to our partnership with GNW Consulting, you'll hear even more stories from women leaders about how they're building visibility for themselves, their careers, and their companies. I'm your host, Ashley Laabs, and today we're joined by the vibrant Nausheen Chen, founder of the Confidence Accelerator, 3 times TEDx speaker and speaking coach to executives. She'll be sharing what it means to enter the spotlight with confidence. Nausheen, thank you so much for joining us. I'm really excited to talk to you today.
Thanks so much for having me here, Ashley. I'm also very, very excited.
Yeah, I want to hear all about your story because I know that you are a public speaking coach for CEOs and founders and executives. And I don't think you get to a place like that without your own journey of crafting your own personal brand and your visibility. What was that like to start that journey for yourself?
The personal branding journey took a while to get started. First, I was your average corporate manager, actually. I didn't get to the exec level. I was at Procter & Gamble for many, many years. That was my first job. I was a communication skills trainer there, in addition to my regular job of doing PR and marketing. I really enjoyed that part, but I never thought that was something I could pursue in life as a career. And then completely moved directions and got into filmmaking. I was a commercial filmmaker for 7 years, creating commercials and corporate documentaries. And that's when I started working with a lot of CEOs who were speaking on camera for the first time. And I realized, wow, sometimes they can just transform themselves into robots when they speak on camera. They're totally fine if you talk to them in person, put a camera on them and they become like the worst, most boring version of themselves. And so I started coaching them without realizing that's what I was doing. I was coaching them to actually speak on camera. But during that entire time, I was completely invisible on social media. I was not building my personal brand online. A lot of the work that I was doing was also very grounded in the very literal sense of the word, because when you're a filmmaker, you very much work with the local resources and get local clients, and everything was very, very local to the place I was living in, which happened to be China at the time. But I knew that was not my calling in life. I never felt like a filmmaker, believe it or not. It wasn't a passion. And when I started asking myself these hard questions, what should I actually do? I was about to turn 40. I was 37 at the time. And I was like, it's a now or never situation. I have to figure out what I really want to do with life that is going to bring me some level of satisfaction and fulfillment and make me feel like I'm actually utilizing my talent. And the personal branding journey began really at the same time, where I used LinkedIn primarily as a testing ground of sorts. I thought to myself, let me just start posting here and see what sticks, what resonates. So in the beginning, I posted about everything. The last book I read, what I felt about the French election, and public speaking, because that was one of my big passions in life. That was the one thing that I had been doing throughout career changes, throughout changing countries and continents. I loved being on stage. I loved speaking to an audience. And because of my last gig as a filmmaker, I loved figuring out how to get people to also be their most brilliant selves on camera when they're under the spotlight. So I took all of that experience that I'd just been gathering quietly over the years and shaped that into my public speaking coaching business, and very much went hand in hand with LinkedIn, where I started creating videos on public speaking. And again, that really resonated with a whole bunch of people. And I realized that this one thing that I take for granted, which is going out and being able to speak to an audience, is something people are really, really afraid of. It had never occurred to me. You take your own experience and your own skills for granted. And that's when I realized, wow, this is where I can really help people realize that speaking in public is actually a superpower. It's nothing to be afraid of. You can develop your skills in this area. And once you do, you can become unstoppable, because there's so much visibility and credibility building and authority building that comes with being on a stage, being on a podcast like this one, being on camera, creating videos, just stepping out from the shadows and becoming visible. So it took me 37 years to step out from the shadows and really start sharing what I do, what I know, what I can teach. And in the space of 3 to 4 years, it's really exponentially helped me build a business where I have now coached CEOs, clients from companies like Amazon, Google, SAP, IBM, AT&T, and even the UN. I've been on many, many, many stages since then, including the TEDx stage. I was approached to do several LinkedIn learning courses. I actually did their first course on AI and public speaking, which I'm very excited about. I was invited to be a professor for public speaking for an MBA program. So all of that just came from me stepping out from the shadows and becoming more visible.
I think that's wonderful and something that really sticks out to me because it's easy to look at everything that you've accomplished and feel like this is out of reach. I can't do this, right? If you're a listener. And something that really resonates with me, because I work with people on LinkedIn, is just the sense of experimentation that you had in the beginning, right? Like, I think that social media is such a great place for that because people don't have a very long memory with what you post on social media. So it's such a great place to experiment with the different things that you think you might want to talk about, or just, whatever you've got, just putting yourself out there and practicing being more visible. Was that uncomfortable for you at all? As somebody who had all this experience with public speaking, was it uncomfortable to put yourself in the spotlight in a different way?
I was always very comfortable in the spotlight. I have a very strange relationship with it because I was adopted and I was the youngest child in a very small family where the cousins that were closest in age to me were 11 years older, which means I was the kid who no one listened to, right? No one ever took me seriously. And I craved just the idea of people listening to me because no one listened to me. My opinions never mattered. And I found myself to be this extroverted person. I was naturally drawn to being extroverted. And I was an extrovert that no one listened to. So very early on, I found the idea of performance to be very rewarding. I started performing poems for the family, things that I'd written, things that I'd come across. And suddenly, everyone started giving you attention. Everyone listened. Your opinion, your voice mattered. And that is something that I took as a very rewarding experience, something that validated me. And now that's good and bad because, of course, then what happened was I sought out every single stage I could find. That's how I ended up on radio, doing a radio show for millions of people. I ended up on every single stage that you could think of, from small to TEDx. And I developed this sense of outer confidence where you could put me on stage in any room, in any auditorium, and I would know how to project confidence, but I wasn't necessarily confident on the inside because I had sought all this external validation my entire life. So that's something that I had to deal with both in and outside of LinkedIn, where I really figured out, wow, okay, so there's performative confidence that shows people that you're confident on the outside, and it's absolutely possible to fake it. And I never want my clients, for example, to ever fake it because I know I did, and it makes you feel hollow on the inside.
Yeah.
And so while the experience of posting on LinkedIn wasn't uncomfortable because I love being public, I love sharing what I know. I'm very much an open book. But the experience of diving deep into confidence and what that means, because I had to do that for my clients. It's one thing to know something, but it's another to teach it. And now I found myself in this position of teaching something that kind of comes naturally to me. It doesn't come naturally to someone else. So I've been studying confidence for the last 4 or 5 years very, very intentionally. And that has definitely been an uncomfortable, but again, very rewarding journey.
So why do you think it is when you had, CEOs and execs in the hot seat, being recorded, what do you think was behind this switch that you saw happen when they became less of themselves and a bit more of a corporate robot?
A lot of factors contribute to that. One is they think they are expected to be corporate robots. The moment you tell someone, hey, why don't you give a speech on this thing? Why don't you do a keynote? Why don't you do a presentation for this big event? They think that they have to be this very perfect professional version of themselves. And the word professional has just been misused a lot because people think professional necessarily means boring, dry, without personality, without emotion, which is so far from the truth because when you think about it, you're talking to humans. Why would you not want to be human when you talk to another human? And so one is that big expectation of I must be professional. And the second thing is lack of familiarity. A lot of people feel that being on camera, doing a video, doing a podcast is just vastly different from having a conversation with someone, but it's not. You are having a conversation with people that are going to be listening to you later. You have to just imagine that audience. A lot of people think that when you put them on a stage in front of a live audience, it's very different from talking to their teams in a meeting room, but it's not. Both of those situations mean that you need to have a conversation with the people that are in front of you. You need to probably share some information, share an idea, share a recommendation, get their buy-in. It's the same as having a conversation with someone one-on-one, but it's so much more powerful because you are now able to reach a multitude of people with the same message at the same time. So for me, it's super powerful as long as you understand how to amplify that message, as how to be very, very comfortable and in control in that space as a speaker.
Yeah, it's very interesting how we can lose the sense of intimacy on both sides, right? Like, we've both been in corporate communications and marketing, and, we lose that sense of like talking to the customer, in a way that feels personal and intimate and authentic sometimes, just in what we're asked to do. And I think the same thing, is what you're describing when a leader takes the stage and it's a one-to-many conversation. We lose that sense of authenticity and intimacy. And it's funny how in those moments it seems like we need to become less of a person and more of an entity. It's like we need to anonymize ourselves and become something bigger than a person in order to earn the authority of that moment.
Yeah. In fact, it's the opposite. You have to be more of yourself. I often tell my clients, the version of you that you put on video or on a stage has to be an amplified version of you, not imitating someone else that you might admire, who you've seen and you want to be like them, but more of you. But it does have to be a different version. So it's interesting that we're also using the word authenticity here, which again, I feel is a misused and misunderstood word because a lot of people feel that, oh, Nausheen, I'm naturally a quiet person. I'm naturally introverted. I don't want to be unauthentic. The truth is, you can absolutely be introverted, but you have to learn how to express your passion for something, your interest in something, your accomplishments, your pride, your humility, the happiness that you feel at sharing whatever it is that you're sharing. You have to somehow figure out a way to bring that to the surface. And it's possible for all kinds of personalities. And just because you're an introvert, the idea of authenticity doesn't mean that you have to put yourself in a box and say, I can never be a good speaker. I always need to be a quiet, shy person.
Well, and that's the thing is like introversion and shyness aren't necessarily associated with each other. I mean, they don't have to, they're not the same thing. They can be teased out, right? And this is where you come in with teaching people about confidence. Like you can be a confident introvert. Hey listeners, we've heard from a lot of women this season who are growing and scaling businesses. So we know it's not easy. If you've got a team that's growing fast or merging with another, that can feel really exciting. But then you're staring down two MarTech stacks that don't play nicely together. This is where GNW Consulting comes in. They help marketing teams sort through the mess, mapping out what to keep, what to streamline, and how to make it all actually work together. Think of them as your behind-the-scenes problem solvers, bringing strategy and then rolling up their sleeves for the execution. Plus, they're a supporter of Wednesday Women and our mission to amplify women execs. So if you're in the middle of a messy merger or it's on the horizon, head to gnwconsulting.com to learn more and see how they're helping marketing leaders move faster and smarter.
Absolutely. 2000%. Ex-President Obama is an introvert, and he's one of the best speakers of our time. And he learned how to be magnetic and charismatic on stage to live audiences despite being an introvert. And there are tens of thousands of examples like that of people that you would just not believe are introverts, but they're amazing presences on stage and on camera because they've understood how to flip a switch, how to get into that zone. And it really is a different zone when you're speaking to a large audience. You want to bring more energy. You want to be more expressive. You want to give people something that they can engage with.
Yeah.
Your ideas, your energy, your thoughts, everything that you can really express. So the idea is being selfless and essentially not keeping things to yourself, but figuring out how to express them and communicate them.
Yeah, well, and you described the feeling at certain points in your career of experiencing that performative confidence that kind of felt empty inside, but you just switched it on and did it. Can you tell us a little bit about what that was like for you, the difference between that performative confidence and something that felt more authentic to you? What was the difference between those things?
So performative confidence is the outwardly things that you can express with your voice, with your body, that show people that you're confident. You can have a nice wide stance. You can use your gestures. You can project with your voice. You can make eye contact with the audience. All those things indicate confidence. The real difference is how you feel afterwards. And this is something that I've heard from a lot of clients as well who somehow train themselves to perform this confidence. And they would get feedback like, wow, you're so confident on stage. You're so good. You're so good when you present. And then they would tell me, but Nausheen, I feel awful. I just feel awful afterwards. It's really that feeling where you feel that, wow, that was just a fluke. I don't know if I can be as clear, articulate, impactful next time. I'm not in control. I don't really know. It's just, I can just do it. I'm faking it. So if you're telling yourself that I'm faking it, I'm an imposter, those are all signs of that lack of inner confidence. And the two for sure work together. So like I was saying earlier, it's absolutely possible to fake that confidence. Many, many people do it. They mask their own anxiety and fear and nerves, and they just go on stage or on camera and they present this confident self to the world. But if you have that inner self-talk that is destroying that confidence on the inside, you're not doing yourself any favors. You're not going to feel good afterwards. And so that's something that I had to wrestle with, where I had to figure out, why am I feeling like an imposter? And it was very much linked to the fact that I wasn't doing things that I resonated with. When I was a filmmaker, when I was doing PR or marketing, I was going and speaking about these things, and I could, but I didn't feel like I was a true filmmaker. I didn't feel like that creative genius that you associate with a film director or a scriptwriter. And so there was that lack of resonance. There was a dissonance between what I was saying and what I actually felt on the inside. And I've seen different variations of this show up with my clients as well, where they somehow essentially felt like imposters, or they felt like, I don't belong on that stage. I don't belong on that podcast. There are other people who are more qualified than me. And all of those beliefs are going to eat away at your inner confidence unless you figure out a way to really combat them. And it's completely possible to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what you're saying makes so much sense, because what you're describing as that performative confidence is really like choreography, right? It's a physical manifestation. It's almost literally a dance that you can do on stage, right? It's really about how you're presenting your body. And I think that's really fascinating. And that the rest of it, the real confidence, comes from pairing that with mindset, right? Mm-hmm. And I think it's so common with the fake it till you make it mentality to think that if I just practice this choreography, the mindset will come. But what I'm hearing from you is that, no, you have to make the choice to have that mindset. You have to practice that mindset. It's not just going to change. It's not a switch that's just going to flip because you've practiced the choreography enough.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's you who has to connect those dots. There was this study by a professor at Stanford, Albert Bandura, and he studied confidence in people. And essentially, he studied two groups of people who reported themselves as confident or who reported themselves as insecure or lacking confidence. The results of the study were like this. If you imagine two people playing a game of Scrabble, for example, and you have confident Kathy and insecure Ian, and they're both losing, right? Somehow they're both getting awful letters. So insecure Ian will talk about how this is my fault. I'm just awful at this. Oh, I can't succeed. Like, this is just me. I bring bad luck with me, and I'm just not gonna be able to do anything because I suck. And confident Kathy says, I'm gonna do better next time. All right, didn't go well. I'll do better next time. I can do better. She puts that faith in herself. And the same thing happens if they're both winning. You would imagine that insecure Ian would feel good about winning, right? But no, because he hasn't connected the dots for himself. He says, that was a fluke. I won. It was a fluke. It was outside my control. I have no idea what's going to happen next time. I'm probably going to lose. And confident Kathy gives herself credit for it. She says, I did that. That was me. Just like I was in control when I was losing, I am in control now when I'm winning. And it's the fact that she has really connected those dots for herself and knows that she has agency regardless of what's happening in the outside world. There's no victim complex as such. And the other person who is insecure feels like a victim of their circumstances. So both people, they've both done the stuff, they've both won or lost, but it's that mindset that just doesn't allow this insecure person to feel confident, regardless of winning or losing.
Well, something that I encounter a lot with folks is even if they have confidence that their message matters and that they can express it and they have control over that and they can do better next time, I think they are often afraid of something that they don't have control over, which is other people's response to it, right? And this is something that can really hold people back from taking their place in the spotlight and from expressing themselves because they're so worried about the things that are beyond their control. And I'm curious about what advice you have for people who are holding themselves back because of that.
It's a false belief. The audience always wants you to win. And this is not because they are selfless, nice people. They might be, but that's not why I'm saying this. If someone is taking the time to be there at an event where you're speaking, if someone's taking the time to watch a video that you've created, if someone's taking the time to tune into a podcast or a webinar, they want to walk away from that knowledge rich. They want to say to themselves, that was a good use of my time. Therefore, they are rooting for you. They want you to do well. They're not there to judge you. Unless they're the judges for American Idol, for example, they are really not going to be judging you because why should they? Everyone cares more about themselves than other people. It's very natural. And so if you put that into perspective and think about how the audience, whether they're there staring at you in a live event or whether they're an imagined audience for a podcast or a video, if you think that all they want to do is get something valuable, then all you need to do is deliver on that value. It's that simple. And most of my clients, most people that you probably know as well at this level, they're experts in what they do. So you have the knowledge. You already know how to deliver that knowledge. You already have something that people want. Why would you put that extra pressure on yourself and think that you're going to be judged? You're really not. If someone can take that value, walk away knowledge rich, they're going to be super happy.
I think that's a great perspective to have. We forget that our audience is on our side, and if nothing else, they're on their own side. And if we can give them something they want, well, then everybody wins, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I want to ask you one final question before we part ways, which is, what advice do you have for women who want to build their reputation, want to step into the spotlight more, without sacrificing who they are, what would you tell them?
Figure out what are the key stories that you can tell. Figure out what is it that you stand for. What do you want to be known for? If you can figure out those stories, those messages, and then tell them in different ways, then you're not stepping away from who you are. In fact, you are doing the opposite. You're amplifying it. Don't be afraid of sharing your stories. And that doesn't mean that you necessarily have to share everything about yourself. That's a very common misconception that people have. Like, I don't want to share things about my personal life. I don't want to share things that are very private. You don't have to. As long as you can bring to the table stories, lessons that you've learned. It can be absolutely professional, things you've learned in your professional life, things that have helped you in your career, things that have helped you with your specialization, with your expertise. Bring those stories, tell them in many, many, many different ways. That's where the spirit of experimentation comes in that we talked about. Tell it like a text story with an image. Tell it in a video. Put an answer like that into a podcast. Put it in a blog post and see what's resonating. And you'll notice a lot of the stories that you bring, the lessons that you've learned will resonate with the kind of people that you are seeking, whether they are business contacts, clients, future employers. And that's really the power of personal branding. The fact that people know you, like you, and value you simply for the lived experiences that you've had.
Yeah, I think that really resonates. Being able to bring your personal stories and bring your lived experience into that instead of feeling like it's only your expertise and your accomplishments, bringing in a deeper level of who you are is a good thing. And it's the thing that's going to draw people to you. I think that makes total sense. And I want to thank you for sharing, not just the stories of the many people that you've helped, but also about your own personal experience and how this has played out in your own life. I think that's a really powerful thing to hear about.
Thank you. I was very happy to share that. Thank you so much.
It was such a pleasure having you. Thank you again.
Thanks, Ashley.
Now that we're at the end of today's episode, we hope you'll reflect on how Nausheen's story might inspire your own. When you're in the spotlight, do you feel confident or are you performing confidence? And what stories from your career and life are the most relevant to your message? If today's show inspired you to think of an extraordinary woman leader in your life, let her know about the Wednesday Women Executive Membership. It's a safe space for women leaders to tackle any challenge, ask questions, and uplift others. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please give us a review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Your ratings help us grow and inspire even more people. Thank you to our Season 2 sponsor, GNW Consulting, to our executive producers, Melissa Moody and Leslie Greenwood, and to our technical producer, Yelena Georgievich, with Kind Media Productions. I'm your host, Ashley Laabs, hoping this small ripple creates a big wave in your life. Until next time.